FM Dakar. Get the best in radio broadcast. We are West Africa Democracy Radio. News, talk, music. Get it all. 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio. 94.9 FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Conakry. Good evening and thank you for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio here on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. First, our major stories. Mixed reactions across Nigeria as military confirms it foiled a coup plot last October.
If the investigation will take them for that long, it should be like 1 week.
That aspect of them denying it at first, I don't prefer that.
I believe that the government should do better.
Uri pledges a transformative public sector following his reappointment as Guinea's Prime Minister. ICRC urges protection of water sources as UN Water Preparatory Forum concludes in Dakar.
Without any water, for instance, you are going to be at the risk of illnesses, but also you have higher risks for women and girls exposed to violence.
And Ghana deploys over 120 health professionals to Antigua under its labor exchange program. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Deborah Amuwo.
Thanks for joining us. Nigeria's defense headquarters on Monday confirmed a coup plot it had previously denied, raising questions about transparency within its security agencies. The confirmation comes after weeks of internal scrutiny following intelligence suggesting activities that could pose a threat to national stability. WADR's correspondent Yechenu Sasetu reports.
After months of speculation, the defense headquarters now says investigations uncovered a plot by some military personnel to overthrow President Bola Tinubu. The issue first came to public attention in October 2025, following the federal government's sudden cancellation of the military parade planned to mark Nigeria's 65th independence anniversary. At the time, the military dismissed claims linking the cancellation to a coup attempt. In a statement on Monday, the Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Samaila Uba, confirmed the involvement of some personnel. Security analyst Olumayowa Olani says situations like this make citizens to question the credibility of official communication.
For them, the thinking is we don't want to put everybody in a frenzy. We don't want to jeopardize ongoing investigation. Oftentimes, it doesn't always work to their favor, especially if it lingers for too long.
For many Nigerians, these developments highlight the urgent need for clearer, more consistent and transparent communication.
It's supposed to wait first and take their own investigation.
If the investigation will take them for that long, it should be like 1 week.
I understand that the authorities, they are in a better position to get information more than every other person. But that aspect of them denying it at first, I don't prefer that.
Olani says the reversal by the military has wider implications beyond the immediate investigation.
Trust is a very huge component in helping us as a people, as a country, to solve most insecurity challenges that we have. But when the trust is no more, the legitimacy is thrown out of the window, because if I don't trust you, then I can't provide legitimacy to what you do.
The military's confirmation mirrors a recent incident in Kaduna State, where police initially denied reports of killings, only to later confirm that lives were lost, further intensifying concerns about crisis communication by security agencies. For WADR, Yechenu Sasetu in Abuja.
In Burkina Faso, the government held its first official flag-raising ceremony of the year at the presidential palace. The event provided an opportunity for the transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, to unveil a series of major initiatives planned for the year 2026. These initiatives cover both security and socio-economic sectors. Sankule Janko has the details.
Captain Ibrahim Traoré has called on Burkinabe citizens to prepare for an intense and demanding year ahead as he positions 2026 as a turning point marked by accelerated industrial and infrastructure development. He says food sovereignty must now be secured, highlighting the successful cultivation of crops once considered impossible, including wheat, cocoa and coffee. Burkina Faso aims to focus on large-scale production and local processing for domestic use. The head of state also announced a major reform of the education sector with new technical and vocational high schools and a university of technology planned this year to help close the country's technological gap. Researchers are expected to benefit from new equipment to carry out their work at home. On infrastructure, authorities will promote self-construction, with young Burkinabe engineers already overseeing a highway project. On the security front, additional resources are to be deployed to strengthen the armed forces and civilian auxiliaries, the volunteers for the defense of the homeland.
Sankule Janko there with that report. Crossing over to Mali, the trial over the acquisition of military equipment has entered its final stage before the Court of Economic and Financial Crimes in Bamako. The case concerns the purchase of armored vehicles worth 36 billion CFA francs from a South African firm, most of which were never delivered. It also involves several former ministers under President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta and senior military officers accused of forgery of public funds. As the court deliberates, prosecutors are seeking heavy sentences. Imo Edet has the rest of the details.
17 former senior civil servants and high-ranking military officers are facing trial in this case, including former Prime Minister Bobo Cissé. The trial, which opened in December 2024, has so far seen 13 defendants appear before the criminal court on charges of economic and financial crimes. The accused are being prosecuted for forgery and use of forged documents, as well as misappropriation of public funds linked to the 2015 purchase of military equipment from Paramount, a South African arms manufacturer. The case centers on a contract for the supply of 36 armored vehicles valued at 36 billion CFA francs. According to the Malian judiciary, the contract was riddled with serious irregularities, including forged documents and inflated costs. Authorities say most of the vehicles were never delivered, raising questions about the execution of the contract and the use of the funds. In its closing arguments, the prosecution called for the strict application of the law, seeking 10 years in prison for the defendants present in court and life sentences for those tried in absentia. Following the prosecution submissions, defense lawyers requested a 48-hour adjournment to prepare their arguments. The court granted the request, and the trial is set to resume this Thursday. It should be recalled that in 2022, Malian authorities issued arrest warrants against 4 individuals in exile, including former Prime Minister Bobo Cissé, in connection with this case.
That report was filed by our Bamako correspondent, Aliu Cham, and voiced by Imo Edet.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Guinean President Mamadou Doumbouya has reappointed Amadou Uriba as Prime Minister, tasking him with leading the first government of the country's new political era. The head of state has also approved the new structure of the executive, which will comprise 27 ministries and 2 general secretariats. The decision marks the start of the process to form a new government, expected to be announced in the coming days.
I am deeply moved, first of all, by the renewed confidence once again shown in me by the President of the Republic, Mamadi Doumbouya. I fully appreciate the weight of the responsibility he has entrusted to me, and I will do my utmost to live up to it. I will work in the interest of the program carried by the President and in response to the expectations of the Guinean people. In this context, we pray that God grants us the strength, together with President Doumbia, to meet the needs and the aspirations so strongly expressed by the population. We need everyone. The task ahead is not easy. The country needs cohesion and stability. With God's help, we will move the country forward.
Amadou Uriba is the Guinean Prime Minister. Meanwhile, the Senegalese Prime Minister's visit to Morocco has resulted in the strengthening of bilateral cooperation between the two countries. Ousmane Sonko arrived in Rabat on Monday for a two-day visit where he met his counterpart Aziz Akanouche. Together, they chaired the 15th session of the Joint High Commission for Cooperation, which concluded with the signing of several cooperation agreements and memoranda of understanding. Abdoulaye Hassan tells us more.
The 15th session of the Senegal-Morocco Joint High Commission on Cooperation was held under the leadership of the prime ministers of both countries. The foreign ministries of Senegal and Morocco signed a memorandum of understanding on road transport covering passenger and freight transport, road safety, and technical support for highways. Additional agreements were signed on digital economy cooperation, vocational training, scholarships, and expertise sharing. The higher education ministries of both countries also signed agreements covering the 2026 to 2028 period to strengthen collaboration in higher education. The ministries of industry and commerce signed a memorandum to promote the development of small and medium-sized enterprises and industrial infrastructure. In the agricultural sector, the ministries signed an agreement on animal production, animal health, and food safety. A partnership and cooperation agreement was also signed between the ports of Senegal and Morocco. At the conclusion of the session, the prime ministers of Morocco and Senegal reaffirmed their commitment to elevating the bilateral partnership to a higher level. Additionally, a meeting between Moroccan and Senegalese business operators is scheduled in Casablanca to explore investment and partnership opportunities in Senegal and Morocco.
Abdoulaye Hassan with that report. Here in Senegal, the high-level preparatory meeting for the UN Water Summit wraps up today. Chaired by the Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, delegates at the gathering called on governments to translate commitments into action to ensure water reaches everyone. On the eve of the preparatory meeting, the International Committee of the Red Cross issued a press statement warning about the use of water as a weapon of war in conflict zones. Nearly 180 million people living in conflict zones have seen their water resources destroyed or manipulated, even as humanitarian needs continue to soar. Eleanor Asomani is regional spokesperson for ICRC.
What I can tell you is that people living specifically in conflict zones or surrounded by armed violence are particularly vulnerable to water scarcity. Indeed, we've seen water supplies and essential infrastructures providing water being targeted. And this is when we do have to be alarmed at the fact that sometimes water is used as a war weapon. But we also see water or water infrastructures being collateral damage during conflict. And the result of that is, of course, that water is life. And so that without any water, for instance, you are going to be at the risk of illnesses such as cholera. Hospitals are not going to be functioning anymore if you don't have clean water. You cannot be cleaning wounds properly. But also you have higher risks for women and girls, since they are the ones who usually go and fetch water. They have to go further away and they're exposed to violence. And finally, there's the risk linked to agriculture. So if there's no water, nothing can grow, which means that there's no food.
Eleanor Asomani is regional spokesperson for ICRC. We'll have more from her in the guest interview. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Mixed reactions across Nigeria as military confirms it foiled a coup plot last October. Ba Uri pledges a transformative public sector following his reappointment as Guinea's prime minister. The ICRC urges protection of water sources as UN Water Preparatory Forum concludes in Dakar. And still ahead in the news, Ghana deploys over 120 health professionals to Antigua under its labor exchange program. We have the press review guest interview coming up. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Liberia, President Joseph Boakai has said the country is in a better state than a year ago. President Boakai, in his third national address at the legislature, cited progress in agriculture, infrastructure, education, health, tourism, and the rule of law. Acknowledging ongoing economic challenges, he reaffirmed his administration's commitment to improving livelihoods and strengthening democracy through 16 executive orders focused on governance and socio-economic reforms. WADL's Abraham Parker in Monrovia completes the story.
The Liberian president has called for amendments to existing anti-corruption laws, including the removal of the statute of limitations on corruption cases. One of the main points of public debate following the address is the president's claim that his administration has created more than 70,000 short and medium-term jobs across various sectors.
Business that exploits consumers will be held accountable. We have created more than 70,000 short and medium-term jobs across the infrastructure.
Reacting to the speech, human rights lawyer Tiawan Gongolo questioned the job creation figures, arguing that they fall far short of addressing the needs of Liberia's growing young population.
Liberia is 119 years older than Botswana. Botswana is now a middle-income country. We are far behind. In a country where the president pro tem, the speaker, make higher than the president pro tem and speaker of the United States Congress, we cannot make progress.
Liberians, for their part, voiced concerns about the country's economic conditions, pointing to ongoing hardship and limited opportunities for meaningful economic advancement.
Now, Liberian people are suffering under this regime. Telling us that they have provided almost 700,000 jobs. Where are the jobs? Only about the West family. The West family are achieved more than the commoners.
President Joseph Boakai's State of the Nation address lays out a vision of a progressive Liberia aimed at sustained growth and prosperity. However, the best reactions to the speech highlight the significant challenges that still lie ahead. For WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
In Togo, the National Civil Protection Agency has officially launched a humanitarian assistance project. Inaugurated on Monday in Lomé, the scheme will cater for internally displaced persons, refugees, stateless persons, and asylum seekers, as well as host communities. The ECOWAS-funded initiative aims to sustainably improve living conditions of the most vulnerable populations. Christopher Aticho tells us more.
The security crisis in northern Togo has resulted in around 60,000 internally displaced persons. The country is also hosting more than 45,000 refugees and asylum seekers, mainly from Burkina Faso. The urgent need of these populations are placing increasing pressure on host communities and basic social services. It is within this context that the project entitled Humanitarian Assistance to Displaced Persons, Refugees, Stateless Persons, Asylum Seekers and Host Communities has been launched. Hoda Balokaja is Secretary General of the Ministry of Security and Civil Protection.
The launch of this project also forms part of efforts to strengthen the safety of communities. Protecting the population is the first of the three key pillars of the President of the Council's policy. This project reflects the continued commitment of the government and its partners to leave no one behind while reinforcing stability and social cohesion in the affected areas.
The project will strengthen the livelihood of nearly 10,000 displaced persons and host families in the Savans and Kara regions. Yaya Seda Tupana, Director of Planning and Emergency Operations.
The main planned activities include the construction of social infrastructure and the provision of food assistance. Beneficiaries come from the prefectures of Penja, Penja West, South and Central. The beneficiary households have been identified within the host communities.
This initiative by the Togolese authorities, aimed at providing a concrete, coordinated and sustainable humanitarian response to the challenges linked to forced displacement, is funded by ECOWAS to a tune of nearly $720,000.
That was a report by our Lomé correspondent Sylvie Wedraugo and presented by Christopher Aticho. We cross over now to Ghana, where 121 health professionals have departed for Antigua and Barbuda in the Caribbean. Their departure is under President John Mahama's Ghana Labour Export Program, designed to create jobs for trained but unemployed health workers in the country. Health Minister Kwabena Minta Akando says the program will be expanded to other Caribbean nations. From Accra, Nadede Tete has more.
The first batch of beneficiaries under the Ghana Labour Export Program has officially left the country for Antigua and Barbuda, where they will provide services in midwifery, mental health and general health care. Speaking at a send-off ceremony in Accra, Health Minister Kwabena Minta Akando said the government introduced the initiative after inheriting a large pool of trained professionals who remain without postings.
So as part of government intervention to create jobs for especially the health professionals, we're exploring avenues where countries have requested our health professionals to work with them. Today is about Antigua. We are working on Jamaica, Barbados, and Trinidad. And so we'll be doing that in batches. We'll be following your progress with keen interest. As you are going, you must be minded of the fact that you are carrying the flag of Ghana. And therefore, we wish that you go and work with diligence and professionalism.
The beneficiaries expressed excitement and pledged to fly Ghana's flag high.
Feeling is great, and I'm very excited about this program because the program has opened opportunities for a lot of us. Some of us has intention of traveling, but this program has made it easy for us. We're doing our best, and we are also going to do our best there to make Ghana proud and to make Antigua people too proud. Antigua, here we come.
It has a great impact on our economy because as compared to what we have or what is being given here in Ghana, this one is far better than what is being paid in Ghana.
I'm really excited and thankful to the President.
Turning to concerns about possible staff shortages at home, the minister assured health workers and the public that Ghana currently has more trained personnel than the national budget can immediately absorb. He said while government continues to post some professionals to facilities across the country, it is also exploring opportunities abroad to ease unemployment in the sector. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
As the preparatory UN Water Summit wraps up in Dakar, the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, is urging urgent collective action, placing the protection of water in armed conflict at the center of the diplomatic agenda. ICRC says in modern conflicts, attacks on water infrastructure and the use of water as a weapon have become increasingly common, sharply worsening humanitarian crises. Deprived of water, civilians are trapped in a daily fight for survival, a cycle that can only be broken through strong humanitarian action and firm political commitment. Our guest is Eleonore Asomani, regional spokesperson for ICRC. She speaks about the organization's expectations from the Dakar Forum, particularly looking at the Sahel water crisis.
It's true that in the Sahel, we have the particular situation that it is basically a vicious circle. water or the lack of is a source of conflict, but also the consequences of armed conflict or armed violence. For example, prolonged droughts reduces access to water. So when you have very little rain or on a very short period of time in the year, that means that livestock or cattle owner have to look for water and for grass elsewhere, which also means that they might stumble upon the land that is not theirs, and this would make them potentially compete with other cattle owners. So that really, really is a problem because it can provoke tension, so conflict, but also armed violence displaces people, and it displaces them in places where they may not have access to water, to clean water, or to places where that same conflict has already damaged or made obsolete the water infrastructures.
What concrete outcomes does the ICRC expect from this preparatory high-level meeting for the UN Water Summit?
With this high-level preparatory meeting for the UN Water Conference, I think the ICRC is really hoping for innovative, flexible and multi-year financing that would allow us to provide specifically in conflict zones. And that doesn't always come as an emergency. It also comes as prevention, so preventing the collapse of those water systems to make sure that the gap between the needs and that aid is not as big. The second thing maybe could be to formally recognize that actually armed violence and armed conflict are a major obstacle to that access to water and integrate that water and conflict dimension to the conclusion of that conference, because we need to remember that targeting water systems, water infrastructures is actually prohibited by international humanitarian law.
Now, how can diplomatic commitments be translated into real protection for civilians on the ground?
So we have actors that are on the ground and that have the ability to help in those situations. So the International Committee of the Red Cross has, for instance, a unit that is in charge of assisting people who don't have access of water. For instance, in 2025, we've assisted 32 million people worldwide. So it is possible, and that is translated in the distribution of emergency water, the rehabilitation of water, sanitation and energy infrastructures, and always working hand in hand with local authorities. Earlier, we mentioned the Sahel in Mali in 2025. More than 160,000 people were able to access clean water thanks to infrastructures that were either constructed or rehabilitated by the International Committee of the Red Cross, and always in support of local authorities.
Eleanor Asomani is the regional spokesperson for the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC. And now it's time for some sports stories. Kenya's long-distance runner Faith Kipyegon is turning her success on the track into social impact, announcing plans to build a maternity facility in her hometown of Keringet to improve access to safe childbirth. The Dare to Dream maternity ward will be funded by her sponsor, Nike. In tennis, Olympic Solidarity and the International Table Tennis Federation are boosting coach education in Zimbabwe and Djibouti, supporting youth development and preparations for the Dakar 2026 Youth Olympic Games. And lastly, in football, Nigeria's Super Falcons will compete in a four-nation West African tournament in Abidjan from February 27th to March 7, 2026, as part of their build-up to the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations. And with that, we have come to the end of Newslink this evening on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Sheikh Njai for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. My name is Deborah Amuo. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM, Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.